Now for analysis on the future of the conservative movement is Tommy Hicks, the co-chair of the Republican National Committee. So Tommy, if this was a conversation, for example, that was happening maybe a week or a month before the elections, I could understand why maybe some people would be concerned. But I mean, acknowledging the fact that this is not an election year necessarily, there are some actually, but for the large part, it's not. What do you make of these conversations that are really being had about the identity of the Republican Party and really the candidates that are coming forth?
Well, we're definitely the party of America first right now. I mean, the president accomplished more in 4 years as president of the United States than most presidents could dream of accomplishing in 8 years. It's redefined who we are. We're fighting for the American people, and it's quite the opposite of what the radical Democrats are doing these days.
And, you know, when it comes to the idea, for example, I was watching some of the other networks over the past week, and they did away with the idea that there could be a third party. That ended up being basically a fake news headline that was kind of stirring up some outrage, things of that. It seems like the Republican Party, for the most part, I would say, is actually pretty united when it comes to the issues. It doesn't have the same type of divides as you bring up where progressives are taking aim at the more centrist type of Democrats. I would say that that is a more ideological divide where right now it's just a matter of who the Republican Party wants to represent them. So do you foresee that there may be some, for example, Trump-backed candidates that go head-to-head with maybe people who are incumbents or something like that?
Well, I can tell you one thing. A lot more unites us as a party than divides us, especially when you see what's happened in the first 49 days of Joe Biden's administration and his comrades in the House and Senate, basically ramming through legislation that's going to hurt the American working men and women across the country that the president fought so hard to defend over the past 4 years and provide opportunity and prosperity.
And I think that you bring up a good point, too, about really the direction of the party and where it's headed, because to your point, there is a lot more in common with a lot of these candidates than there are, for example, the things that really divide them. You don't see that third party really coming to light, and there's a reason for that, because ideologically and on the issues, I think most conservatives are really on the same page. And in fact, just recently we saw that the highest fundraisers were Rick Scott and Josh Hawley, some people who are demonized in the media, but it ends up that within the conservative movement, they're very much so popular figures, despite what you may see on MSNBC or CNN or something like that. So what does that tell you about the future of the Republican Party?
Well, it just shows you how much energy there is behind conservative Republicans. And we're seeing that all across the country, whether they're donors or activists who are conservative. There is a lot of energy and enthusiasm to get Republicans elected, to take back the House and the Senate in 2022 because of what's happening right here, right now in Washington, D.C. It's so highly disconnected from what the American people want.
And, you know, you bring that up, and I think it's an interesting point because, I mean, we were told that 2020 was a defining election. And don't get me wrong, it absolutely was. And we're seeing the effects of that right now. I mean, I think there are a lot of conservatives that are very concerned about the Democratic agenda and what Joe Biden is doing right now. But what does that mean for 2022? Does that put that much more importance on Republicans really trying to take back not only the Senate, but the House of Representatives, perhaps, and not to mention governor's mansions as well?
Absolutely, and we're close, and we need to pick up 5 House seats to take the House back, and we can and will do that because, again, what the radical Democrats are ramming through Congress right here and right now. It's dangerous policy for the American people, whether it's border, election integrity, or economic opportunity for the American people. It's going to cause some serious damage.
Yeah, and especially when we're talking about immigration. I mean, that is a crisis that is literally taking place right now, but we can't even get the administration right now to acknowledge that it's taking place. I think that's very troubling, especially when there are Democratic lawmakers on the southern border raising the alarms. I mean, it's not a right-wing talking point or anything like that, but I want to stay on the election as well because, I mean, you're exactly right. There were gains made by Republicans in 2020. The House of Representatives is the most noticeable one because I think that not only did they really chip away at the Democratic majority, but the way they did so was also unique. We saw a lot of women, for example, really come up and be more competitive and kind of diversify the Republican Party. Is that what the party needs to do in order to be successful in future elections?
Well, yeah, you're right. It is the most diverse class of new freshmen in the House that we've ever had. Our party reflects what the American people look like now more than ever. And you're going to continue to see strong conservatives run for these districts that have been left behind by these big government Democrats, and they will pay a price at the polls in 2022.
Yeah, and I'm interested to hear about what really goes into that as well before I let you go, because as I said, this is relatively an off year. There are some gubernatorial elections I know that are taking place this year, but I know a lot of people are looking ahead to 2022. So what is happening right now in preparation for that? Is it a matter of fundraising? It is a matter of going out and trying to find strong candidates that can be competitive in certain districts? What does the interior workings look like right now at the RNC preparing for 2022?
Well, we just came off the largest presidential campaign in history, the most prolific. We had 2.6 million volunteers. We want to keep them engaged throughout the next 2 years and have a great foundation going into 2024. We need to keep reaching out to people to run for office, whether it's state or local office. We're seeing now how dangerous these policies are on the Democrat side. We need to get people to get energized to go run for office and make a difference in their communities.
No, I think that's very well said, and I know that the Republican base very much so is energized right now, so it'll be interesting to see if they can build on those gains in 2020 as we were talking about. But Tommy Hicks, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight. Thanks.